Well, hey, thanks for joining us today at CMN Lead. My name is JJ Vasquez, and I have the blessing of serving Journey Church in Winter Park, Florida. We launched our church a couple years ago, and today I want to share with you a little bit about preaching in the worship experience. I want to share with you a quick statistic from Gallup. I've got this down here in front of me. A recent Gallup study found that 76% of people who attend church at least once a month say that sermons, preaching, is the primary reason they go. That's significant because they didn't say music, 38%, or community, 49%, or service opportunities, 59%, or kids and youth ministry, which came in second place at 64%. They said the preaching, which is why my first point sharing with you today is that preaching is important. People are gonna come to your church and continue coming to your church if the preaching is hitting home where they live. And that's important because if preaching is that important, you need to learn to not neglect it. Why would I even mention that? Because I'm a pastor. I know what it's like. It's easy as a pastor to be tricked into becoming a marketing guru or a manager or HR or an accountant or a problem solver or a graphic designer or a video editor. But you gotta be resolute on the idea that you are not called to be any of those things first and foremost. You are called to be a preacher of the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ. That's why you're here, to tell people about the hope that we have. And so you cannot let anything get ahead of that primary responsibility that you have as the communicator, main communicator of your church. And so if you're not gonna neglect it, there's two things I wanna add to that. The first thing is you gotta then schedule time to prepare for it. Too many pastors are finalizing their sermons Saturday night, starting their sermons Saturday night. And I would just schedule time throughout your week. Yes, it's gonna come at the expense of some other things, but there really is nothing more important than first and foremost communicating the gospel. Leadership development's important, culture's important, raising money, all of those things are important, but you gotta preach true. You gotta preach what God's speaking to you, to your people. And also on that point, I get a lot of questions asked about series, sermon series. Is it okay to steal? Is it okay to copy, imitate? And I've got two different answers depending on whether or not you've been a pastor for a long time or whether you're just starting. If you're just planning a church, let me encourage you. Imitate, don't innovate. Take whatever sermons you can online that ministered to you and use them, man. They're gonna give you the graphics for free, the videos for free, and I really think it'll bless you. If you've been pastoring for a while, then that's okay in the beginning, but then probably in the end, you gotta begin to frame and kind of shape your own voice. But I still do it, and I kind of make it my own. So here's a couple of things if you're gonna be taken serious from other pastors, really important. Number one, internalize, don't memorize. And you're not gonna be able to say it just like them. You wanna get the message inside of you, which leads to my second point here, which is reciprocate, don't reflect. You can't preach just like someone else, so don't try it. Preach like you. You want the message to resonate inside of you, and then you reciprocate how you have been blessed. But again, don't say it just like they said it. Don't try and mirror someone else. God created you to be the communicator that He created you to be. So that might mean that you have more of a teaching style or more of a preaching style. Maybe you're a shouter, a yeller. Maybe you're a calm and collected business guy with a table like this and a chair. You need to just own you, be the best version of you possible. So preaching is important. That's the first thing I want you to leave with. Here's number two. Prayer is more important. That's right. I tell you, there's nothing more important than preaching, but I was setting you up, and it's prayer. Prayer is absolutely more important. I still remember it like it was yesterday because it was actually 3 days ago, where I woke up and I was super behind on sermon prep, and it was like 6 a.m., and I was tempted to jump straight into my sermon prep. I was behind. There's a lot of things that needed to happen at church, and I was about to do that. My normal routine is like a soap journal. I don't know if you're familiar, but just my Bible devotional type of process. And right when I was about to jump into the message, I just felt a conviction in my spirit that the devil would have me do anything. I mean anything other than pray. Anything. Because the reality is he can handle me and he can handle my sermon. But what he can't handle is God. Listen, prayer invites God into the preaching. It is not a coincidence that one of the greatest sermons ever preached, Peter's sermon on the day of Pentecost, came on the day of Pentecost. It invited God into the process of preaching, and that's exactly what we want. One pastor told me, don't build a church that attracts people. Build a church that attracts God, and people will come to see God. And there's things I want to tell you right now that only God can do that you never could. Prayer also takes the pressure off of you and onto God. I once heard Robert Morris speak this at a conference. He talked about he was seeing a counselor. And in his counseling session, he was telling his counselor, famous Christian counselor, he's saying, hey, sometimes I feel like every Sunday, I have to hit a home run in order for people to come back. And he said to his counselor, he goes, and I want you to know, I can hit home runs. I mean, I hit them out of the park, but it takes everything I've got to hit a home run, and I'm exhausted. And the counselor looked back at him and he said, wow, nice to meet you. I bet you can split the Red Sea too. And what he was trying to get to, what his counselor was pointing out, was that you don't battle the spirit of perfection, you're battling a spirit of pride. It is plain old pride, and prayer is pride's antidote. The more you pray, the more you invite God into the process, the more it becomes what He can do and not about what you can do. And finally, prayer is how you win the war in the spiritual. We got to remember, we are not in the public speaking business. We are in the pulling down strongholds business. And there is a war going on before you get behind that pulpit. I would say it like this. I'd say the war is won in prayer. The prize is claimed in the pulpit. And so preaching is important, but man, prayer is more important. You got to be full in that well. Peter told the guy at the gate of Beautiful, silver or gold I do not have, but what I have I give to you. Prayer is your way of ensuring that you have something to give. So number one, preaching is important. Number two, prayer is more important. Number three, people are what's most important. John told his disciples, I must decrease so he can increase. This was a revelation for me, that preaching wasn't about how good I did, but about how much I could help someone else in their journey with Christ. I'll never forget a story Brian Houston shared about Joyce Myers one time. He asked her, do you ever get nervous when you speak? She speaks to hundreds of thousands of people every year. And she had just the most curious response. She said, I don't know. I don't really think about myself when I speak. Which was like a mind-blowing experience for me as I heard that story. So I'm like, all I can think about sometimes when I speak is, man, don't bomb, don't bomb, don't bomb. But when you get up there in front of those people, one of the things that's gonna give you the most rest is realizing that it's not even about me. It's about them. And when you get your mind off of you and onto them, all of a sudden, you really start helping people. Also, since it's about the people, preach for the how and not the wow. It's great if your point rhymes. It's great if it sounds cool. It's great if it's funny. But you know what your point really has to do? It has to work on Monday. It can't just get somebody to say amen on Sunday. And in order to preach for the how and not the wow, you also gotta be spending time with people. Being a part of a small group is great. When you find out what people are really wrestling with, that allows you to shape your sermon around the questions that they're asking and not the questions that you think are important. And finally, always preach Jesus. Nothing is going to help people more than a relationship with Jesus. Matthew 6:33, seek first the kingdom of God and all other things shall be added unto this. So preach Jesus and always give an opportunity for people to meet him. You might say, well, everybody at my church is a Christian. I don't really need to make that call at the end for salvation. Listen, if everybody at your church is a Christian, that's a whole nother CMN lead video. But when you start letting people know, I'll never forget my wife's brother, who we love, was kind of wrestling, with his own stuff. And he came to church one Sunday. And before he came to church, she looked at me and she was smiling. She said, I love my church so much. And I was like, well, how come? And she says, because I got a family member who's coming that really needs to hear the gospel today. And I don't have to worry because I know that everyone I invite on Sunday is gonna have an opportunity to meet Jesus. And that blessed me so much. And I think your friends are asking the same question. I think the members of your church are asking the same question. If I bring my friend to church, are they going to hear about Jesus? Because they know he's the only one who's been able to change their life. He's the only one who's been able to transform them. He's the reason that they come. And so be sure every Sunday you're preaching Jesus Christ, crucified, resurrected, living in our hearts. I think it's gonna bless your church. I think it's gonna encourage them to invite more people. And I think it's gonna fill heaven and empty hell.